All right, we've got our friend Eric Miller with us on the hotline today. Eric is Senior Transit Planner with FHU, a company that does a lot of transit engineering and planning around the country. And he, of course, is in their Omaha office. And Eric is also the writer of GrowOmaha.com's transportation column. Eric, good morning and welcome back to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Well, it's good to have you back. And first of all, before we go much further, why don't you, for those people who haven't read your column on our website, tell people what they can find if they check out your transportation articles.
Yeah, absolutely. So I must admit it's definitely transit bias because that's the profession that I'm in. That's what I focus on. And what I try to do is bring everybody up to speed on what's going on with transit issues in the Omaha area, and including the streetcar project and other projects that are going on, and then also just some thoughts on other things that are happening nationally and how that could influence what we're doing here in Omaha.
So, Eric, you brought up transportation issues here in Omaha, and today we're having a lot of transportation issues with the weather outside. Why don't you tell our listeners how icy weather would affect a streetcar?
Yeah, that's a very timely topic, and one of the main advantages that we like to promote about rail transit is just the fact that it is mostly an all-weather mode. That there's not a lot will stop it from running, and so usually when we have events like this, and I should mention for people that might not know. I have a lot of background working for the Regional Transportation District in Denver, and we have an extensive light rail system, fairly similar technology to what's proposed for the streetcar. So on days like this, we just want to make sure that we keep the trains running because we want to make sure that we have the rails safe, and then also where there's overhead catenary wire, which is where the cars get their power from above the cars, that's staying clear and that there's not ice building up. And in slick spots, we have what are called sanders on the trains where there's little boxes of sand, and the vehicles are smart enough to automatically release the sand under the wheels when there's traction needed, so to keep them from slipping, and then also to get you some traction for getting going. So those are the two main things that we do on weather like this that helps keep them running.
That's pretty cool. I don't think a lot of people realize that trains have the capability of doing that.
Yeah, that's all trains. I mean, dating all the way back to the steam engine. Rails are always slick, even if it's like a rainy day. So the sand has been around for forever, and it works perfect.
It's steel on steel. Yep. So if it was wet or icy, that would be an issue.
Right.
So, Eric, tell us a little bit about your company and what involvement you may have in Omaha Transit.
Yeah, absolutely. So our company, FHU, is headquartered in Denver, and so that's where I started working for them, was in the Denver office, and then decided to move to Omaha and try to promote more work here and get as there are more projects coming up. And so some of the things that we've been focusing on are, my experience most is transit planning. So that's, planning new and future corridors that are coming up. And then also one of my specialties is doing the operations work for it. So figuring out how these are going to run, how much they're going to cost, the operators that we need to staff them with, and then how are we going to get the funding, that sort of thing. There's a lot of intricate things that come in. But we've currently got some work in Omaha, Council Bluffs, and Lincoln for the transit agencies there. So that's been really very interesting.
So, and just so the listeners know, you grew up here. You have a very long time history with you know a lot about the history of the area and the streetcar. So it's not like you're coming in and just learning about our city. How about giving us an update on the current work? I see that the bridges are kind of the next thing on the list for, we've been doing utilities for a while now. Now they're going to start looking at a couple bridges.
Yeah. So, and as I mentioned, I'm involved a little bit in the Omaha streetcar work. Obviously, HDR has a lot of that work, but I've been helping out with some of the operations stuff. And it's getting very exciting because it's really getting real. You probably noticed the utility work that's going on out there. In 2025, we'll get into more of the serious construction work. The mainline track construction will begin in 2026, but what we're going to see this year in 2025, that's kind of a big deal, is the replacement of the Harney Street Bridge over I-480. And so that's to allow the streetcar track to go over the bridge. And this bridge is designated for replacement within 5 to 10 years anyways. And so this is a good time to replace it for the streetcar. And then next year, we'll have the Farnham Street Bridge replaced in 2026. So they're kind of the big mainline projects that you'll start seeing out there.
We're talking with transit planner Eric Miller with FHU. And Eric, so it'll take 2 years to completely rebuild the Harney and Farnham bridges over Interstate 480. Will we see other actual streetcar construction in other parts of the 3.5 mile route while those are going on? Will we see any steel rails going into concrete before the 2 bridges are done?
No, not yet. Like I said, that'll start in 2026. And then, ongoing is the utility works I mentioned. But what'll be really interesting is down by the CHI Health Center, you'll start to see the vehicle maintenance facility take shape, just kind of right there underneath the I-480, just to the north, squeezed in there between the I-480 overpass and CHI Health Center, which is called the Mecca Lot A, the parking lot right now. And we're doing the site prep work right now for that. The bids are due for the actual construction of it this week, so we'll announce soon who gets that, and that'll get started here soon, and that'll go through 2026, and our vehicles will start arriving in 2027. So we'll have the vehicle maintenance facility done just in time for that. So it'll be exciting.
Oh, okay. So I was down there about a week ago and saw all that dirt work there. That's just site prep. That's not building the actual building.
Right. Yeah, just some basic site prep, including utilities and getting the parking area rearranged and the curb and gutter stuff. And then we'll get into the real construction early next year.
Then where on this timeline do the streetcar stops start coming into play with the construction?
Oh, like the stations?
Yeah, those. Yeah, and they're called stops or stations. With streetcars, they're more like what you'd see kind of like an orbit bus stop. Definitely more than your traditional just bus stop sign, but not as extensive as like a light rail station. And they're spaced closer together than light rail lines. So usually we call them stops. Those will probably start coming up in late 2026, early 2027, along with the rest of the line. And for anyone that's been to Kansas City recently, if you go down Main Street, you can see their construction, which is quite extensive. They're going to open their extension along Main Street next year. And but yeah, that all kind of comes together with the mainline track construction at the same time.
Well, we have Eric Miller with us. He is our columnist who writes about transportation on the Grow Omaha website. He's also senior transit planner at FHU in the Omaha office. And Eric, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what might come next. We currently have this streetcar system terminating on the west at about 39th Street, and we keep hearing that it could be extended into the Med Center sooner rather than later. Anything new on that front?
I haven't heard anything recently, but my understanding is that we're still working to get that going so that we can open that at the same time as the rest of the line, because it's not a very far extension. It's just a little tricky one because we have to figure out some grading issues and where exactly we want the stop so that it works well for the UNMC campus. But it's going to be a really, really good one to have because there's a lot of employment there, a lot of need to have a good transit into that site. And so that's something that we want to try to take care of here in the next few years before we open, so we can extend it into there.
So you brought up the grading issues, and Farnham Street right there is pretty steep. Is there a maximum grade for streetcars? We're going to, as this line extends to different parts of town, is that something we're going to have to take into account where these lines go?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's some places that we've got, steep rail transit. Like there's a section in Salt Lake City that comes to mind over by the University of Utah Stadium. But generally, you want to stay under 5% grade. That's ideal, especially when you have days like today where you're slipping more, things like that. But Otherwise, if you get past that, then you're looking at cable car technology or something else. So yeah.
So, Eric, we keep talking about, okay, what would come next? Do we go North Omaha? Do we go South Omaha Zoo? Do we go airport? And then, of course, Council Bluffs really is interested in extending the line over the river all the way to their downtown. And lately, if you look at a lot of commercial real estate development news coming out of Council Bluffs, a decent amount of it is on what they call this First Avenue Trail, which is essentially where their streetcar line would go. It's almost like some of these developers are hedging their bets that might happen in Council Bluffs someday.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should mention that, one of my recent articles covered some potential extensions. And I should note that a lot of these extension options that are kind of close into downtown could also be good, like BRT options, where you could see something kind of like an orbit. So you have to decide on the right technology, just like any transit corridor. In Council Bluffs, they're very much interested in the streetcar. We're currently doing what's called a planning environmental linkages study, which is kind of a pre-environmental study that follows the Federal Transit Administration's guidance so that we can seek federal funding to build that corridor. And so we're following all the steps, and as part of that, we have to start from scratch and say, okay, we just want to connect downtown Omaha and downtown Council Bluffs. How should we do it, and where should it go? And so we've had a public outreach meeting that we had in October, and we kind of have to let the study follow that. So we can't come out and say, let's put a streetcar on First Ave, even though that's what the city absolutely wants. We kind of have to take a step back and then make sure that is what makes sense and what comes out of this alternatives analysis that we're going to be getting into this year, which will look at the different options. We're going to look at the costs and how it meets all the project goals and things like that. But very exciting to get to this point because we're getting closer and closer to a potential extension there into Council Bluffs.
So what kind of environmental study do you have to do when you have a strip of land that was railroad tracks from the 1800s all the way up till about 5-6 years ago when they finally ripped them out to put railroad tracks back in? What kind of, why? I guess I don't understand why so many studies on the impacts would need to be done. Yeah,
absolutely. And that is definitely one of the hurdles and what makes transit projects take so long these days than before. But it's probably less saying like, let's see what the environmental impacts are, but more like making sure this is what the community wants and this makes sense. You just kind of have to go through that and just note everything so that the FTA is in agreement with that. So it just takes a little bit of time. But this is we're trying to do this a little bit faster than other studies. So try to get through that red tape a little bit.
So a lot of the listeners probably don't know this, but Eric and I have gone way back, and we're both really into railroad history, and we know a lot about the railroad history of Omaha. And we talk about how many rail lines that crisscross the Omaha metro area that were ripped out that would be perfect for, if they kept the right-of-ways intact for light rail and stuff like that. It's interesting to see now we're going backwards and putting some of these things back in.
Yeah, some of our bike trails now, Eric.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, and I, one of the things I like to do for recreation is go running, and I'll go running on a lot of these old rail trails, and sometimes I think like, oh, this would be a cool transit extension through here. This is how this could make sense, and that sort of thing. It's fun to think about.
Well, and aren't we talking about a possible, it might not be rail, it might be BRT, which is Bus Rapid Transit. Aren't we talking about an extension from the North Omaha Transit Center on Ames down to Midtown, like in the Saddle Creek area? Isn't that kind of on the drawing board?
Yes, yeah, that's called the Belt Line, and that's one of those that I mentioned could be either bus or streetcar, kind of depending on, I want to do this analysis and figure out what the community wants and what makes sense and do a cost analysis. But yeah, absolutely.
Well, Eric, we appreciate you joining us, and we also appreciate you writing these columns for GrowOmaha.com. And for those people that haven't read them, you're really missing out. Eric is one of the foremost experts on transit in the Omaha area and a very good writer. You will be a lot smarter after reading one of his columns. And the current one and all of the past ones are available on growomaha.com. Eric, appreciate you joining us, and thanks for all the good work you're doing in making Omaha better connected.
You bet. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, and thanks for all that you do as well.
Well, that's our good friend Eric Miller, Senior Transit Planner with FHU in the Omaha office. If you like this video, be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons. And remember, Grow Omaha is not just media. This is a mission. We are trying to build up Omaha and make it an even better place. We can only do that with your help. Share this video with your friends, neighbors, and family.